We just had a really good lobster. Was it a lobster mushroom?
Yeah, we picked it up at the grocery store, Christopher. That's very different than finding it in the woods and being
no.
like, you know what? Let's see how this goes.
I mean, I understand that, but
I think they only sell the edible kind in the grocery store.
Hello and welcome to the Worldwide Honeymoon Travel Podcast, the podcast that talks about all things couples travel, including destinations, tips, advice, and more. I'm Chris.
I'm Kat.
And this is episode number 261. Last episode, I started off with airline news.
Do you have more?
Of the maggots.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like this could be a feature every single week.
I hope not. Okay, here's the thing. It's like after we talk about that, I will get TikTok videos in my feed about things going wrong on airlines. And which, like, things go wrong on airlines every day.
Sure.
It's just not always publicized.
The food. Ba-bum. Ching.
Isn't that the truth? But, like, I mean, things happen. It's just the fact that it's always so televised. I mean, like, part of a door falling off doesn't happen.
Not falling off.
Like
getting blown
literally
out.
Blowing out. That doesn't happen, but like other things happen, like mechanical issues where like you're landing and like the landing gear's all messed up, so you're like things happen, but it's like not to the extent of like a door being blown out or something. Yeah. But
someone tried to open an emergency exit during the flight.
Which you can't do when it's over 10,000 feet, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if someone's trying to do this, maybe they don't have the firmest grasp on physics.
That's true. Just because, if you guys don't know this is something that I didn't know until, I don't know, I guess pretty recently in the last few years, was that a person cannot just like go berserk and open the emergency exit door and when it's above 10,000 feet, just because of the pressure. But the pressure on the inside of the plane versus the outside of the plane, it just like... a person does not have the amount of force to be able to push it open with that amount of pressure. Now, under 10,000 feet, that's a different story, but you also should be in your seat because you're still ascending at under 10,000 feet. But again, if you're not in the right mind
buckled.
frame, you probably don't care.
The fasten seatbelt sign is still on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a keen eye on all of our
What
flights.
else happened? Was it just like...
They had to turn the plane around. Because
the guy was just crazy. And
some knucklehead decides that he's going to open up, or I don't know. A passenger decides that they are going to...
What does he think he is, DB Cooper?
That was under 10,000 feet?
Yeah, he literally just jumped out of the plane and like nobody ever saw him again.
Isn't that
My guess is he
fascinating?
probably jumped to his death, but...
That is fascinating to me. Okay. How long do you think you could evade capture?
Not very. I don't know.
Like, do you think that you could evade capture for like a week or not that long?
You know, I don't think about it that often.
I'm not...
Because I don't really do anything that I need to be captured for, I suppose. But
neither do I, but like I'm thinking of...
It's not something I think of.
DB Cooper is like one of those stories that like, I don't know, it's just interesting to me. And then, but I always think like when I'm watching these shows, I'm always like, what would I do in that situation? Like Sully, for instance. As someone
You're not a trained pilot.
Yeah, but I do have a bit of flight simulator experience. So that is like that's an easier picture for me than I've never had to evade capture. I think I would be pretty good at it though.
Knock on wood.
I can run like pretty far.
I don't think you can outrun a vehicle. You know what I mean? Or like a helicopter situation.
Maybe not a hybrid vehicle.
All you need is one little blow dart.
What was that?
That's a blow dart with a little trank in it. You're just knocked out.
I'm sorry. You think that if people are looking for me, their weapon of choice is going to be a blow dart?
If you're running away and they're trying to tranquilize you.
I don't know.
There you go.
Can you tranquilize? I'm not even going to ask that. I'm not going to ask that question.
I don't know. I mean, according to like Indiana Jones and like, I don't know, other
fictional works.
Fictional works where people are in the jungle and they get blow darted and pass out. Yeah, apparently it does work, but I'm not sure the real life application of that.
I don't either.
How that works.
I don't either. Have you ever parachuted?
I have done like parasailing, but never like jumped out of a plane.
Never a parachute.
No.
I haven't either.
That's not something like...
Just within these past 5 minutes, I have realized how much I haven't done.
You know, there are some things you just don't need to do in life. Needing to not get captured is probably one of those. And I don't necessarily feel the need to parachute, but basically skydiving, because eventually, unless if you want to fall to your death, you need to pull the parachute. You know what I mean?
I would skydive in a heartbeat.
I would not. I don't want to bungee jump. I think bungee jumping sounds scarier than skydiving, because what if the thing breaks? The bungee thing breaks, but also like I don't like the idea of like you bounce, but then you're coming back up. Like you don't know when it's over, you know? It keeps going, you know? Until finally it's like done. But like I don't know. I don't like I'm like afraid of whiplash and all that stuff with like bungee jumping. But I also don't want to jump out of a plane.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
It is pretty safe on the ground most times.
You know, I really liked the ground. I liked the hot air balloon over the Masai Mara. It was very like...
That was a rough landing, though.
It wasn't that bad.
Talk about whiplash.
Okay.
Goodness.
But it was so calm in the air. Like it was really like calming being up there. It wasn't like that windy or anything.
That's true. Hold on. Getting back to what we were talking about. What is your theory on DB Cooper?
I think he died. Like I think he fell and died.
Like you think he died before he hit the ground, or like he died upon impact? It wasn't like...
Yeah, I think that he tried to escape, and I think he fell to his death, essentially.
This was when you were traveling. It was either like last year or the year before, and I can't remember where, but there was like a DB Cooper mini series. Maybe on
if
Netflix.
He survived the impact with like a parachute or something, I think he like landed in the middle of nowhere and like didn't have the supplies to handle it being in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean?
I don't know. How good are your berry identification skills?
I do know that there is a berry plant that grows, at least it grew in Kentucky. We would get it a lot. And it was like bright purple or pink or whatever, the whole plant.
Okay.
That is a not good berry. Don't mess with that berry. That is a toxic berry.
How long would you have to be without food? Like, how close would you have to be to death to test your luck on a shroom? Like, you stumble across, like, a thing of mushrooms, and you're like...
Oh, I could not trust that. I could maybe identify hen of the woods.
What about a nice button?
I don't know.
Or, like, a baby Bella?
I feel like I would just need, like, a survival guidebook with me.
Well, put that in the duffel bag.
Yeah.
Mushrooms. Mushrooms of the woods.
Mushrooms of the woods.
That way, when you jump out of a plane...
There's the lady who like lives out of Columbus that I forget her like TikTok handle, but she does do foraging.
Isn't it like the urban foraging?
She does like urban foraging, yeah. And she always does like the mushroom stuff, and she's always like, happy snacking, don't die. But she always gives you multiple ways to identify a thing. And then she's like, if you are new to this, don't do this, essentially. Like, you need to know what you're doing before like finding mushrooms in the woods. You know what I mean?
I've had a few different like shiitake, or we just had a really good lobster. Was it a lobster mushroom?
Yeah, we picked it up at the grocery store, Christopher. That's very different than finding it in the woods and being like, you know what? Let's see how this goes.
I mean, I understand that, but
I think they only sell the edible kind in the grocery store.
Trumpet?
Yeah.
Like, I could firmly identify at least 3 mushrooms.
In the wild, though? Because there's a lot of, like, similar-looking ones in the wild.
I think my senses would be heightened in the wild.
You know, Christopher, I worry about you a lot of the time.
Speaking of mushrooms, well, what's your highlight?
I feel like it's been like a pretty normal week, but I really enjoyed last night we went to Great Lakes and Alberta Clippers on tap.
That was going to be my highlight,
which is always nice, but also
such a good porter.
I got a lot done this week. A lot of writing. So this week I worked on France Voyager, and I was working on a lot of Paris content, and it is like by far one of my favorite things to write about. So
have you been there?
Just a handful of times. just a bit. But like, it's one of my favorite things to write about. And I just published, like right before this hit publish, on a 4-day Paris itinerary.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, I've written a lot about Paris this week.
Is there a highlight that you have within that article for the people?
Oh,
for
goodness.
me? Maybe a restaurant?
La Jacobine.
There it is.
So good.
Cool.
Such a good one. Also, pro tip. If you're going to go to the Louvre, do the closing time tour. Like, it's the last 3 hours of the day. You can book that tour on, like, Take Walks or whatever. And, yeah, you basically spend the last 3 hours of the day at the Louvre before it closes, and you go around with an art historian. But the cool thing is like, you get lots of cool context because it's an art historian. But at the very end, the last 15 minutes, when they're starting to tell people to, like, hey, let's hustle up out of here, when everyone's starting to leave, they let you, like, quickly go and, like, check out the Mona Lisa. Like, they talk about the Mona Lisa beforehand, and they're like, it's the last 15 minutes. Everyone, like, go get your photos, and then you can leave. So everyone else is, like, basically leaving the museum, so there's no line for the Mona Lisa, and you can, like, actually go and see it.
That's cool.
Because that's, like, the trick, is just to go at the very end of the day, and then you get rushed out. But, like, that was a cool tour that I took last time, was actually getting to see the Mona Lisa without the crazy lines.
So speaking of the Louvre, before we get into the actual episode, this is an embarrassing. This was an embarrassing moment for me. The Louvre is massive.
Yeah.
Right? But when I say the Louvre, what do you think?
The art museum?
Well, yeah.
The largest art museum in the world?
Yes.
The most famous art museum in the world?
Okay.
Formerly a palace.
You are endlessly frustrating with this question. You think
I only write about it all the time.
You think of the glass pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When I first saw the glass pyramid, I was like, how do they fit all of that in there? Then,
like, under the pyramid?
Yes.
Oh.
And I was like,
there's a metro stop right under the Louvre, too.
I know.
Like, it all fits under there.
But then when
but
you
also in the buildings around the pyramid.
Yes. Then when you realize that there's buildings all around you, and I'm like, oh, that's how they do it. This isn't just the museum right here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway.
So embarrassing.
Today's episode is something that is near and dear to my heart because I feel like this is an area of trip planning that I really shine in for the most part. There have been a few duds over the years, but for the most part, this is my bag. I'm pretty comfortable with this. So today we are going to talk all about eating while traveling.
And how to find the best places to eat while traveling. Kind of our way of going about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're going on a trip, and this is going to be how we approach figuring out where and what we are going to eat while on a trip. So hopefully there are some tips or inspiration that will help you here. But my first question for you is, you are going on a trip, and let's say it's without me, or it's like just in 100% your control as to restaurants and stuff. Are you doing research? Are you going to just land and like walk around and see what looks good? Or are you doing a combination of both?
A combination of both. I think it really depends on where you're going. Like a big city, I feel like reservations are sort of a must because you have a mix of both visitors and also locals who are making reservations. So if there's a particular place you'd like to go to for dinner, you need to pretty much make a reservation if that's even available. Versus, I don't know. Sometimes I also play it by ear based upon like if I'm going on a day trip that day and I don't want to like have a reservation time and be tied down by that if like I'm not exactly sure the exact time I'm going to get back from the day trip.
Okay.
Or if we have a lot going on that day, like I don't plan every single night's dinner, if that makes sense, but I will plan a handful of them to do during our trip. Yeah. So especially like like our trip up in Paris, like if we want like a really, really good restaurant that we want to go to, I'll probably book those in advance. And
okay, but
pro tip, can I just give a pro tip though? If you do plan it in advance and you can't make reservations online and you have to call to make a reservation, I mean, if you want to call, you can certainly do that too. But considering it's a different phone number, outside, at least in the United States, like you get charged international fees and all that stuff. You can also just reach out to your hotel. And I've had hotels make reservations for me. Like I'll just reach out to their concierge and be like, hey, can you make a reservation at this restaurant for me? And then they can do it. So that way you don't have to worry about like, oh, when are they open? When, during the day when I'm also awake and all these things. And
international fees.
Like it just helps to have the hotel sort of handle that for you. So that's always helpful. But yeah, so sometimes that way. And then sometimes I do it on arrival again, like, especially like breakfast places. Like dinner's pretty much the only place that I will make a reservation for.
Okay.
Lunches I don't typically do, especially because you're usually out and about during the day doing things. So like, if I don't have a couple hours to like have a sit down lunch somewhere, I'll just like grab a sandwich or something.
Nice.
But yeah.
Okay.
But also for like breakfast, I just try to go early when it's like newly open, like Corette in Paris or Cafe Central when we were in Vienna. Like we just kind of go earlier in the morning before it gets crowded, and then we can like get served, which is nice.
Okay. So all of that being said, you do a combination of research and upon arrival.
Yes.
Figuring out what looks good.
Yeah.
Okay. As do I. How do you approach your research, and does it change depending upon the destination?
Yeah, I think I usually start. It depends on where I start, but usually I start by like reading through blogs and podcasts and like listening to podcasts about certain destinations and see what they recommend, what people there recommend based on their travels there, or TikTok videos. Like I follow a lot of like creators around the world that are both travel but also locals in different areas, and like they might recommend a restaurant. I'm like, oh, that sounds good, and I'll like check it out. I also look at TripAdvisor and Yelp, or sometimes I literally just Google like the best restaurants in X, and then I just kind of do some research and read reviews on it and see. That's kind of how I approach it. Sometimes I'll go to the Michelin Guide. Not just for Michelin star restaurants, but you could talk more about that because I'm sure that you do a lot of research looking in the Michelin Guide and stuff. But sometimes I'll look on that for restaurant inspiration as well.
Okay.
What about you? Do you want to talk about your method?
Well, the way that I approach research is there are a few key days on the trip that I am absolutely researching for, that I am not going to trust me just looking around. And those are the day that you land, you're going to be tired, right? If you don't have a plan for that day for a restaurant, I mean, you and I have done this before. It is literally just whatever is closest to you. You're going to eat there and you're going to go home. You're going to go back to the hotel rather. So I generally like to do research for that first day when you land, just so that there is a plan and it doesn't like, you don't end up eating like just like not a throwaway place, but you know what I mean? I also will do research for the night before we leave. So that's generally like you want to go out with a bang sort of thing. And something contrary to how you approach it, I like to do research for nights after long day excursions. Because again, you'll want to plan. Like, and I'm not saying you push it.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know how, like if the tour's 9 hours, I'm not going to make a reservation for like a half an hour after that. But I am going to have a plan of, like I'm going to have ideas for after that. So again, it's not just like you get home and you find like the little stand down the street and you just grab something to grab something.
Yeah, that or I'll just like head to a grocery. Because usually after a full day trip, like usually lunch is part of that. And it's usually a pretty good sized lunch. So usually by the end of a day trip, I'm kind of like not terribly hungry. So I'm like, oh, I'll just like go to the grocery store nearby and like grab some snacks. You know what I mean? Like, but also I don't know, I love a good girl dinner. So
you're like a squirrel.
Just hunched
like
over the counter.
Rat over the sink.
No, but I also... Yeah, because even when I was like, I spent a week in Paris by myself, just like doing a bunch of research, going to a bunch of museums, doing a bunch of tours, but also just like exploring things on my own. there was a couple nights where one night I cooked because I had a kitchen where I was staying. And
what
then,
did you cook?
Oh, just like a pasta and pasta sauce, like easy.
Oh, French.
Yeah. But then, you know, I also had another time where I just like ate bread and cheese and butter and stuff. Like, I don't know.
Like a Lunchable.
Essentially. Like,
Alrighty.
I just like that. Yeah. Like, I
Yeah.
would rather have a bigger meal at lunch and then just have like an easy. Well, it just depends, because it depends on the trip, because sometimes, you know, I love a good long sit down dinner. It's 2 hours long. You're really connecting with the people you're with, having some wine, having a good dinner. But like when you do that for 14 days in a row, it's kind of a lot.
Oh, I could do that every night.
So like part of me is just like, sometimes I just want to have like a quick meal and just be in my pajamas and I like at the hotel room for a bit. Not like an early, like, you know, like instead of being like going to dinner at 7:30 and getting home at like 10.
Got it.
It's like nice to just like snack on some stuff and just be in your hotel room and veg out for a little bit so you can get ready for the next day. You know
Got
what I
it.
mean?
Okay. So, yeah, we approach that differently then.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say that I do more research in quote unquote foodie locales.
Yeah.
If it's a bigger city, I'm going to be doing more research than if it's like a smaller beach town, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say that if Bourdain has an episode about it, I'm going to watch it.
I was going to say Bourdain, Somebody Feed Phil. You also like watching, well, we both like watching travel shows, but like we pay attention to where they eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that that I will do is I will see what the area's chefs are talking about. So I will...
How do you know this?
I will find out,
you gotta reveal your secrets. That's the point of the episode.
Yeah. So if there are... Like if you type in, like if you're searching for chefs in blank, and then you find out who some of the notable chefs are in the area, and then generally... what I can do is I can find like where they've been interviewed recently or they've had a comment or something like that. And they're talking about, like whether it's trends or ingredients or things that they're excited about. And then what I will do is I will, look for whether it's that dish or what have you that is mentioned, either in articles or reviews or, what have you. And that is how I will try to key in on some restaurants. So like, for example, if someone is talking about like, we were talking about mushrooms earlier. So I'll say like, it's like a king mushroom risotto or something like that. And that's what like chefs in the area are talking about because that's what they're excited about. I will start doing searches for like king mushroom risotto and then like the locale where we are, and I will find like where reviews are talking about it, or sometimes like a menu will pop up that it's on it, and then like that's how I'll.
This is extensive.
It is extensive.
I mean,
I don't mess around with
I
this.
do like to look up if we're going to a particular destination, what kind of foods what that area is known for, especially in like Italy. And then trying to find restaurants that make that dish and make it well. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I said like this is the area that I shine, because this is like deep research that I will do on this.
Seriously, I had no idea. But I guess another example too is like if you have a favorite chef. Like I really liked David Chang. So when I went to Vegas, I was like, oh, well, like he has Momofuku in Vegas, and that would be like, I guess Vegas is a great example because there's all sorts of celebrity chefs that have restaurants there. So I was like, oh, I really want to go to Momofuku because that's Dave Chang's restaurant, and that would be a cool place to go and try like his food there, his recipes. Yeah. So that was another thing. Yeah.
Okay. So that actually leads into my next question. What are some go-to sources that you have?
Well, I mean, again, I would say like podcasts and blogs are sort of my biggest.
Any specific ones? That come to mind?
I know back when Extra Pack Peanuts, they did like destination guides. I would listen to their stuff. Like I think, was it Kaosai Meisai?
Yep.
They recommended that in their Chiang Mai episode. I'm trying to remember other places.
That's okay.
Yeah, like I can't remember.
I just didn't know
really
if there was
like,
something specific
for
that came to
France
mind.
travel. Like if you guys want to listen to a podcast that's just about France, Join Us in France. There's a fantastic podcast. I don't know if I've gotten restaurant recommendations from them, but I have like learned some things about like different places in France that I've been more interested in wanting to go to.
Nice.
Because of. I can't recall if there have been particular restaurants, but I will say TikTok videos too. I do follow a lot of like travel creators, but also people in different areas. And like if they're recommending something, it's probably pretty good.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that kind of leads into some of my sources here. So number one, people who have been, but I have the caveat if they have good food opinions.
Fair.
So obviously, like, it's all opinion, and people are going to like disagree, and like people have different tastes and different taste buds and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But like it's not a one and done for me, but it is kind of a 3 strikes you're out for me. So and like I mean I don't have like a burn book on this or anything like that, but like if I know that someone was like really hyping up something and I did not like it, I'm not going to necessarily be like going back to that source for recommendations for like another destination.
So if we go to Paris next month or whenever, sorry, if we go there and you try Corette hot chocolate and it doesn't meet your expectations of Les Deux Magots, written off.
Not written off,
My
but
hot
like,
chocolate opinion.
Not written off, but like
no pressure.
more so just like solidified that I have better hot chocolate opinions.
Okay.
My other go-to sources are, I mentioned it before, Bourdain.
Somebody feed Phil.
Yeah. The Michelin Guide, you mentioned that. And it's not just the Michelin Guide itself, but like, even like Bib Gourmand or like the Michelin Guide selections.
So not just Michelin starred restaurants.
Correct.
And actually this is a bit of a hack that I've noticed, especially while traveling in France, because France has so many Michelin restaurants and Michelin recommended like Bib Gourmand selections, not just necessarily starred. But if you want to go to a really nice restaurant with a tasting menu, but you don't want to pay like tons and tons of money that you would at a Michelin star restaurant, the Bib Gourmand is a really great compromise, because I've paid like €65 for a 5-course tasting menu that's like amazing in like Dijon. You know what I mean?
You just like literally described what Bib Gourmand is.
Yeah, but it's like as good of quality and as good of food as like a Michelin star restaurant. It's just cheaper, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean the whole point of
Yeah.
Bib Gourmand is that you can get a like a delicious tasting menu without breaking the bank. That's like essentially what the level means.
Oh, well. What? So I'm sorry, you can't have a Michelin star but also be like an affordable restaurant? I mean, there are places that are.
No, you
Yeah.
absolutely can. But like that's like generally the thought behind Bib Gourmand.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, then, guys, just check out Bib Gourmand. It's going to be just as good of food, and it's going to be a lot cheaper than going
It's
to a
generally
Michelin
a
star.
little bit more comfortable too, like a little bit more approachable than some of the
Than making mousse out of everything and deconstructing all sorts of things.
Wow. Well,
Again, you know how I feel about a lot of Michelin. When it's like the fancy schmancy Michelin restaurants,
yeah.
this is my hot take, but like, I think sometimes they're all trying to be so unique that they're doing the same thing. Like, they're all trying to deconstruct stuff and make a mousse out of everything. And like, it can't just be like a really freaking good dish that their grandma gave them years ago that they're recreating and making it like amazing. Instead, it's like, let's see how we can like liquefy a chicken breast and like put all like, it's always like over the top, and like they're all trying to get this way because they think that's what being a Michelin restaurant is.
Wow.
And I don't know. I just feel like they're all trying to be unique, that they're all the same
Man.
in
all
that
right.
way. That's my hot take. I mean, I'm not like blanket statement on all of them, but like,
Okay.
I feel like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just burned because we went to that 3-star Michelin restaurant. It was like that. The food was very good.
It was
was
good.
an experience. It was not the best meal of my life, and I would never pay for that again. You know what I mean? Like, it just wasn't worth it to me.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that it would be interesting to try that again at like this point in our life.
That's true.
Um,
I'm still bitter about the fact that this restaurant gave us chocolates at the end, and they like had a whole box full, and they were like, oh, like which ones would you like? And
okay.
I'm still bitter about the fact that I was like, oh, like all of them. And she's like, people take 2.
Got it. All righty. So the way that you approach restaurant research, what are some notable successes that you have had based upon your methods?
Okay. I will say that, again, looking at the Bib Gourmand menu, L'Essentiel in Dijon was like that €65 tasting menu. So freaking good. It was so delicious. I think it was like a 5-course tasting menu. Amazing. One of the better restaurants I've been to. I think that was a really big success by doing some of that research. Also, by Somebody Feed Phil and like all of that stuff, we went to Khao Soi Cad Gorm.
Khao Soi Cad Calm.
Oh, okay. Well, that amazing restaurant.
Also now known as Khao Soi Netflix.
Yes. Yes. But very, very good. And I'm glad that we plan to go there based upon Netflix. And then also La Jacopine. Well, that was actually a word of mouth that we just heard through the grapevine of people that have been to Paris that went. That's why I kind of do like blogs of people that have gone who do take food research seriously and stuff. Not that, I don't know. No, I don't know. I'm basically just saying like people that do a lot of food research and then they write about it and talk about it. It does help because, yeah, we found La Jacopine just through word of mouth, and it was a very, very good restaurant. I'm very happy that we went there. Me and like my friends. Sorry that you didn't get to go.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. What about some of your successes?
I also had Khao Soi Cad Calm, which is Bib Gourmand. I was looking at that.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
That is awesome.
Good for them.
Honest Weight in Toronto.
Oh yeah,
that was a great find by yours truly.
Yeah,
and that was based upon the fact of like what chefs in that in Toronto were talking about at the time, and I was like, well, that was pretty cool. Roma Sparita in in Rome.
You did a lot of research on that.
And then Vico Lo Colombino.
Yes.
In Bologna.
So good.
Absolutely fantastic. So those are some notable successes based upon how I go about restaurant research. Do you have a notable letdown or two? Based upon like you used your methods and it just kind of fell flat.
It's not, I wouldn't call any of these like failures or letdowns. They just weren't as... Well, one of them I said was Vin Cafe in Alba. There's nothing wrong with it. The food was good. But when we got there, a local was like, oh, no, you don't make dinner reservations here. It's more of like an aperitivo spot. Like you get food during aperitivo and you get drinks there and then you go elsewhere to dinner, where we had made reservations to go to dinner there. And the food was good during the aperitivo and the drinks were good, but it helped having someone, that was like, oh yeah, you go here for aperitivo instead. So kind of a letdown. And then I would say like, again, not a letdown because it was still good, but like Go Fish in Vancouver.
Oh yeah.
That we had planned to go to. Nothing wrong with it. Still really good. Loved the halibut, but I just felt like it was like fish and chips. I don't know. It just nothing
stood out.
Nothing stood out.
Yeah, the soup was the best thing there.
Yeah, the soup was really good. But I guess fish and chips are kind of all the same, maybe.
It's fish and chips.
Well, I don't know.
I wouldn't say that, but yeah, I know what you mean.
That's
it was a
true.
bit of a
there
letdown.
There are some like it wasn't. It was lightly fried. It wasn't like there are some fish and chips you get that are like it's all batter and it's terrible.
Yeah,
like it was good quality. I just feel like it wasn't anything that like really stood out.
Yeah,
flavor wise, but it's also fish and chips where it's mostly just like fried and you have chips with it.
Yeah.
So
my notable letdown was Khao Soi Mesai. Also Bib Gourmand in Chiang Mai.
I thought it was really good.
I thought it was all right.
It just wasn't as good as the other one.
Yeah. I mean, it was like I wouldn't necessarily need to go back if I went there.
Oh, I thought that one was pretty good, but
yeah, but that was a notable letdown based upon how I researched. All right.
Yeah.
Going away from research and going to the scene where you are in the destination, you have arrived. How do you approach where you're going to eat upon arrival? And does it change depending upon the destination?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I think changes.
Talk about how you approach it.
I think sometimes talking to people, word of mouth, again, it's always a powerful thing. Talking to people in the area, talking to people that you meet. There's something I notably remember that my sister and I, use your nose, the nose knows. There was one time my sister and I were literally walking around in Paris and we smelled the most delicious bread baking. And we were like, I'm not even that hungry, but you know what? I'm going to go in and get that baguette because it it just smells so good. And we were right. And it was nice and warm because it just came out of the oven and it was so good. So your nose knows as well. But like, do you want to talk about like green flags or something?
Well, I'm going to say I approach these sorts of nights with saving them for later in the trip once you're acquainted with the cuisine.
That's a good point.
So if I've dined at different restaurants throughout a trip, I'm not necessarily making a reservation or planning where I'm going to eat every night, but I am going to save kind of like a wild card night for later on in the trip once I'm more acquainted to the area, once I'm more acquainted with the cuisine, because then I'm able to kind of like determine where I think would be a good restaurant. And I will also say, like I said with the research, I'm more likely to walk around and peruse in smaller locations. But like I'm not necessarily going to go into like a Paris or a London blind at this point. I'm just not.
Can I talk about some green flags?
Yes, go for green flags.
These are things that I look at a lot of places to realize if it's going to be a good restaurant or not. I think first and foremost, if it's near a touristy area, like if it is, I keep going back to Paris, or for example, in Rome, if it's near the Colosseum, if it's near the Trevi Fountain, like if it's like right next to it, it's made for tourists.
That sounds like a red flag.
Yeah. So I said if it's not near the touristy places.
Oh, okay.
So walking a little bit further away. So not near the touristy places. If another green flag is if it's busy, but you can tell it's a lot of locals, that's always a good thing. The menu is not like in English, the one that's like right out front. Like it's not the standard. I mean, that's not always a red flag because again, if you're in a big city like Rome or Paris, they know like English speakers and things are going to be there too. But if the primary menu that you see is in the native language, that's always a good thing. That it actually, and this is very specific to based on your location, but closes between lunch and dinner. Again, that's more of like a France and a like Italy and Spain. Like if it's closed between lunch and dinner, that's usually a good sign because that's usually a more local restaurant. Again, that's not always the case. Like there are some brasseries and bistros, especially in like France, that are open all day. That's just kind of what they do. But a lot of good restaurants will close between lunch and dinner. If you see people getting food there and that food looks good and it smells good, that's always a good sign as well. But yeah, basically it's busy with lots of locals. It's not right next to the touristy spots. The menu is not in English right away. That for the most part, it's closed between lunch and dinner, and it looks good. The food looks good, smells good, etc.
Nice.
From what you see. Yeah. What about you?
My green flags are if I'm walking by and there's an outdoor area and I do not understand a word of what anyone is saying.
Yeah, locals.
People are speaking the native language.
For the most part, yeah.
Small dining rooms.
Yeah.
Because if it's small, they're not relying upon volume. They know that they're going to sell it out.
Wow, that's a good point.
So I always look for small dining rooms.
Yeah.
I look for old men or women interacting with customers. So if they are walking around and it looks like it could be like a grandparent, good sign for me.
Yeah.
If a host or a server has a IDGAF attitude,
it's a good sign. No.
It is a good sign for me.
It's true.
Because again,
pretty much outside of the United States, the customer's not always right.
Again, like they're not trying to get everyone in there. So I don't mind someone being like a little standoffish. Locals recommendations, we talked about that.
Yeah.
If it is in an area where there is water nearby and there is a fishing boat or dock near the restaurant.
This is very specific.
It is very specific, but
Okay.
I know that that's going to be fresh then.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something I will look for. And the other green flag is if someone invites me into their home. Now, you always kind of
Use your best judgment.
if I meet someone and they're like, hey, like we cook out of like our kitchen and we will serve food, I'm going to probably go try that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to. I mean, use your best judgment, but
Maybe
also
do a little research. Maybe see if they have a like Facebook, anything that like indicates that they are a restaurant.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Red flags.
My red flag's empty. Like it's empty and it should be busy and it's only tourists. If it looks expensive for like the normal type of food in the area, especially if it's like near a touristy area, like if it's like, again, if you're near the Eiffel Tower, like right next to the Eiffel Tower, right next to the Trevi Fountain, right next to the Tower of London, and you see all this stuff, it's probably going to be touristy and built for tourists, or right next to a train station or like somewhere where a lot of tourists are going to be. This is my biggest red flag, is if someone is standing out front harassing you to eat there. You know how like you'll walk past and they'll be like, oh, come here, it's good, it's delicious. I'm like, always a red flag. Immediate ick. I'm like, I will not be eating there because you're harassing me about it. Which means like you're obviously, it's not that good of a restaurant that it's like busy enough that people are going in and it's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if the food just it looks bland, not authentic, like it's just like, I don't know, looks like it's something that was just reheated and put on a plate, like those are all red flags for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first one that I wrote down is people outside encouraging you to come in.
Yes. I will just immediately, I get the ick. I'm
There's
not
a
doing it.
0%
There's a
chance I'm doing
0%
that.
chance I'm going.
The next one goes to where they have the menus posted outside. If the prices are in USD and the country is not on the USD. So if the country
or uses
is on
it commonly.
Right. If the country is on the euro or the pound or what have you, and they have prices in USD, not eating there.
Yeah.
All you can drink specials, not eating there.
Not even a bottomless mimosa?
No.
We did that in DC. That was a good time.
Yeah. We didn't go there for the food. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we did. It was good.
I mean, it was okay, but like, if there is an all-you-can-drink special, they're generally masking the food because they know that you're gonna like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If there are burgers, pizzas, etc., where there should not be. So, if there is a menu that has a whole bunch of stuff, but then like there's burgers or like pizzas on it as well. I'm generally not going to do that because then they're just trying to get people in who like would not appreciate the local cuisine.
Another red flag, aside from the Cheesecake Factory, because you know that slaps.
Too big of a menu?
If it has too big of a menu, I don't know how the Cheesecake Factory does it.
Okay.
But if it has too big of a menu, there's no way they're that good at making all of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. The other thing I will look for is if people are dining outside and I see a lot of half empty like pushed away plates. So they're not finishing it. Because like I recognize that there are people out there that are like, "Oh, I simply couldn't have another bite." But
it's normal.
It is not, because
you were clean plate club. I finish when I'm like done when I'm full.
Even if it is the most amazing thing you have ever had.
I don't know. Well, sometimes I will overeat when it's like that good. But
yeah,
like for
exactly.
But for the most part, if I'm full, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, but if it's that good, you're gonna keep going. That's my point.
I don't know.
The other thing that that is like an immediate red flag for me is if there is like what I call IG food. Like they're cooking it or presenting it in a way because they know it's going to look good on Instagram. Like, alrighty. So those are some of my green flags and some of my red flags. Notable successes that I have had with my method M&L Juice Bar
I put that on my
in Hopkins. Yeah. It was an invite from them when we met them when they were working.
Now, they had a TripAdvisor page.
They did.
So we looked that up ahead of time. We weren't just like, oh, yeah, this makes sense, and then went.
An absolutely delicious meal, though.
The best meal I think I've ever had, still.
Mercado 28 in Lima.
That was good.
Yeah. Based upon a recommendation, and just absolutely great. Osteria de Sognatori in Alba.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Just a local recommendation.
Went in, and there was not a permanent menu.
Yeah,
it was written,
handwritten.
Yeah.
I was gonna say another green flag is if they just have like a chalkboard and they just write everything on the chalkboard for the day.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And it was also not in English.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then Little Chroma in Siem Reap. Tiny dining room. Recommendation. Super, super good. What are some of your notable successes based upon how you approach?
Okay.
This?
I did M&L Snack Bar again, like what you said.
M&L's Juice Bar.
Juice Bar, so stinking good. I would say also, was it Ella's Cool Spot?
Yeah.
Also amazing. There was a place that I went to in Paris I really liked, Le Pré aux Clercs in Saint-Germain. It just was like a busy place full of locals and stuff, and the food looked good and it smelled good and it was really good. I had the duck confit. It was delicious. Yeah, so those are some of the successes that I have like off the top of my head from just like going off of things like that.
Okay. Do you have some notable letdowns from how you approach this?
Yeah, I will say that in Chiang Mai, we went to a place that was like, it was a khao soi place, but it was big. It also didn't look authentic. It didn't look like, I don't know, it looked like you could have put that restaurant like anywhere in the world. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it didn't look
authentic
to the place that you were at. Not that always makes a difference, but like it looked like the menu was huge. It was just a bunch of different khao sois, but they had like pretty much everything on the menu. And then
what was it called?
I can't remember, but it was the one that was like the big fancy.
No, I know what one you're referring to.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was called, but it was the one that had like the huge menu and it had the soft crab.
It didn't just have like chicken khao soi or veggie khao soi or beef khao soy.
It was huge. The menu was big.
But it also had like shrimp khao soi.
And it looked fancy and all this stuff. Yeah. But I would say that one was probably a letdown. There was also a place in Dijon that I got a croque monsieur, and it just looked like it was right next to like the big cathedral. And I was just like, I'll be honest, I was a little hungover because we went out the night before in Dijon, and yeah, I just was hungry, and I went there, and I was like, this is a very disappointing croque monsieur. So that's like another one that I would also say wasn't very good.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, sorry, one more.
Go for it.
In Paris, there was a place that we were staying, a friend and I were staying next to Gare de Lyon, and she got in late, and we were just like, oh, let's just go to like a restaurant near Gare de Lyon in that area. And unfortunately, it was, again, right next to the train station, right next to where people are just kind of coming in and out. We got past it. It was like, not very good. It was just pretty bland.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have two.
Okay.
The first one is before I would do the like the planning for long day trips. I did your method of it was like, it's a long day, we don't know when we're going to get back, and we're just going to eat anywhere. The ramen shop in Rumiwasi.
Yeah. It was literally like you could tell that it was just like packaged ramen that they threw together.
Oh.
And just served you.
I also have notable letdowns all of Bangkok. Which kills me because like looking back, it was just a bad approach to it. Bangkok has fantastic restaurant offerings, but we just like, we had done no research. We were just doing the whole stay of like, oh, we'll just figure it out when we get there.
And it's too big of a city.
Way too big.
To not figure it out, at least one night for dinner.
And like the one night we went to, and this was like red flag after red flag. The one night we went to that brewery that was serving like tacos and pizza, and I was just like, this is not it. So definitely like some letdowns because we ignored some of our red flags.
Yeah. I will say that we had a crab omelet that was like pretty good at one place we went to. It was like near, I don't know. We were wandering around for a while, just walking, and we like got lunch, and the seafood omelet, crab omelet was very good, I thought.
But
other than that, yeah.
All that to be said, this is the area of trip planning that I absolutely love.
I was gonna say, as you can tell, Christopher, this is like his jam.
This is deep research that I do.
Like, I will do the deep research on things to do. Like, I will go down a whole rabbit hole about things to do, hotels, logistics, all the cool things to do in the city. But then I usually always leave food up to Christopher because this is like, he thrives on it.
I love it.
So a lot of the things we recommend on Worldwide Honeymoon are Christopher recommendations. So if you are just not sure where to go, just look at our blog and our podcast, because we have all sorts of recommendations, because Christopher does all that research and really enjoys it and really gets into it, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust your gut, trust your green flags.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that is how to go about researching for restaurants and how to find good restaurants where you're at on arrival as well. But let us know your thoughts. You can always reach us on Worldwide Honeymoon on Instagram or Facebook, or at WW Honeymoon on X, or you can always reach out to me on cat@worldwidehoneymoon.com. But thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to rate and review our podcast. It takes less than a few minutes and really helps other people find us. Also, if you're enjoying this awesome free information on both the blog and podcast, when you're booking your next trip, head over to worldwidehoneymoon.com/resources and use the links provided. We earn a small commission at no cost to you when you book through these links, and these are all brands and companies we know, love, and use, like Skyscanner for finding the best flight prices, World Nomads for the best travel insurance, TripAdvisor for hotel bookings and reviews, and even Amazon for all of your travel purchases.
Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Wherever you are, wherever you go, remember to make every day a worldwide honeymoon.